Hi everyone and good afternoon. Welcome to PSG's webinar on computer systems, considerations for data integrity. My name is Shirley Tim and I'll be your host for today. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items to run through with you. As you can see from your GoToWebinar toolbar, we have a number of tools which you can use. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the question tool to type in your question, and both myself and the speaker will be able to see these questions, and we will answer all questions at the end of the webinar. This webinar is scheduled to run until 3 p.m. today. In case we don't get through all the questions today, or you have additional questions after the webinar, please email us at info@psg.ca and we can get your responses to them. Please note that PSG does not provide electronic copies of presentations. If you would like to receive a hard copy, please email info@psg.ca and confirm your office or your home mailing address, and we will mail you a physical copy. Our speaker for today is David McSweeney. Dave is a subject matter expert for computer system validation. He has been working in the pharmaceutical industry for 24 years, from research, production, information technology, and project management. He has led projects for multinational pharmaceutical manufacturers, including Sanofi Pasteur, GSK, and Teva, to name a few. David is an expert in project management and GXP, specializing in IT projects, quality management, data integrity, and 21 CFR Part 11 compliant computerized systems. He has successfully worked on a variety of computer systems implementation projects in manufacturing and research laboratories, validating infrastructure, standalone computerized lab instruments, and complex global networked systems. So Dave, thank you for being with us today. And without further ado, I will hand off the presentation to you.
Thanks, Shirley. I just wanted to welcome all the everybody who's listening in. Now, this is mostly if you've done this course last year at this time, or I think it was earlier last year. It's going to be probably about 80% of the same content. But if you haven't, if you didn't attend the PSG conference on data integrity or did the prior webinar, hopefully there'll be a lot of good information today for everybody. During the course of the webinar, if you do have questions, what we're going to try and do is answer all the questions at the end of the seminar. But you can submit them to Shirley, and what she'll do is she'll try and compile them if at all possible. Now I see we've probably got well, there's 11 people logged in, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's just 11 of us participating. Likely some of you may have colleagues listening in as well. So please do not hesitate to ask questions, because it's it's great to get the input as well. What we're going to do is probably to go through the slides will take an hour or slightly longer, and then what we'll probably do is do 20 to 30 minutes of questions. So what I'll do, hopefully everybody can see the screen. So what I'm going to do, we'll start the presentation now, and as we go through, hopefully if there's any technical issues, please reach out to Shirley as well. So, all right. So now it's the 21st of November. I just wanted to welcome everybody. What this webinar is about, it's about computer systems. And it's specifically talking about the considerations for data integrity. And so what we're going to focus on is actually speaking about the specifics for the computer systems, as well as going through a lot of the regulations as well. So now Shirley sort of went through the profile. This is just another blurb about it as well, but we don't need to rehash it at all. What we're going to do is we're going to cover off these are the types of topics we're going to do. We're talking about why is there a need to be compliant. We'll go through what is data integrity. We'll talk about the specific regulations, and the new content for this iteration of the course is I'll specifically go through the new GMPs with regards to data integrity. We'll talk a little bit about Part 11 as well, because that was the initial driver for it. We'll go through some of the specific observations, and then after that is where we'll talk about the specifics about, what are some of the concerns for computer system security, what is metadata, audit trails, what are the different types of data. We'll talk about data archiving versus backup, and then we'll talk about, what are common systems and what are some of the things you need to look at. And then finally, we'll go through a summary just to rehash everything and give sort of a synopsis on some of the key things you need to focus on. So without further ado, we'll start with the need to be compliant. Now what happened is within the industry, especially with Part 11, it's been around since 1997. However, so a lot of us in the industry have been validating computer systems for 20 years or 20 plus years. But what's happened is within the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a real focus on the auditors for data integrity. So what happened initially? What happened back in 2015 was the FDA started to really do a focus on data integrity. Now, these regulations had always existed before within the tenets of Part 11, but what they started to see is they sort of saw consistent things happening again and again, and they sort of realized that, if you look at, they issued 21 warning letters alone just within about a year time frame. And because they saw these things going again and again, what they sort of realized is, okay, we need to provide some sort of push for the industry to make sure that they understand the data integrity concerns. Now, one of the things that they really need to look at is they needed the industry to understand that data integrity is a really important component for ensuring safety, efficacy, and quality of the drugs. You need to protect and ensure the integrity of your data so that you can rely on it to support the release of your product. So, for example, the 21 warning letters for that time frame, that was 21 warning letters out of 28 issued by the FDA. So there's been a huge focus on the auditors on data integrity. Likewise, in Canada, ourselves with the change in the release of the GMP revision, we've also seen a focus with Health Canada as well for data integrity. So now it's very much whether you're being audited by the FDA or being audited by Health Canada, the focus is on computer systems and data integrity. Some of what we've seen is with regards to data integrity, now the slides themselves are going to focus on the computer stuff, but data integrity is not just related to the computer systems. It's also related to how you're recording information in your activities, whether it's you're producing your drugs or you're doing testing around your drugs as well. So what we sort of see is these are types of observations that the regulators were seeing. They were saying, records weren't recorded at the time of the activity is performed or contemporaneously with when the activity is performed. They saw backdating. They would see people fabricating data. They would see people copying data and portraying it as a new data set, rerunning samples or testing into compliance was a big issue as well, where they would see people continuously run test samples, and then when they got the result they wanted, then they would choose that as their sample test to release. People were discarding the data or they were releasing failing product. Again, testing into compliance is also the case of rerunning samples. And then a lot of cases, if they're using electronic data, they weren't saving the electronic data or the hard copy data to support that release test. Now, some of these are more along the lines of how how the staff were actually using the data, not necessarily related to computerized systems. But if we look at the items that have been highlighted there is these computerized systems